Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us. You're watching a recording of First Christian Church Disciples of Christ in Nampa. Senior Pastor, Reverend Dr. Steve Perotti. We believe a lot of things here, like the fact that all people are God's children. All. You heard me right. We have a special heart for those on the margins of society, those who've been shunned, left out, or put down. We seek to offer a sanctuary where your voice is cherished and your presence is beloved. We believe in genuine relationship building, truth-telling, and transparency, warts and all. We've been waiting for you. Let's do this thing together.
What I want to start off with is, many years ago, back in the old days, I was an OSHA inspector. And one of the things that my job was to travel around the state of Idaho and put on safety seminars. And I would do that. And I would do that on like a Wednesday and a Saturday in different places in this state of Idaho. Most of the time they were very boring, and people slept through them quite a bit. But I had one up in Lewiston at the Tapadera Motel in the Globe Room or whatever they call it. And after about 2.5 hours, everybody was asleep. And I thought, got to get this thing over with pretty soon. So I woke the crowd up and told them, you can go home now. And I'm standing there, and this tomato comes flying over the top and hits the backboard behind me. And I thought, oh, okay, now I know I'm really hated by everybody. OSHA inspectors were not friendly people. Anyway, I want to start with this. Christianity is not an invitation to become a moral person. It is not a program for getting us in line or reforming society. It is a powerful effect upon our lives, but the transformation comes, and it is always an after effect of something else, something at the level of our hearts. What I'm going to talk about today is the heart. The heart is central, and that we would even need to be reminded of it only shows how far we've fallen from what we're really meant to live, or how powerful the spell has been. The subject of the heart is addressed in the Bible more than any other topic, more than works or services, more than belief or obedience, more than money, or even more than worship. Maybe God knows something we have forgotten. It, of course, covers all those things, are the matter of the heart. Consider a few passages, and the ones I have are a few I picked, that predict the heart in a different way. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. That's Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. Jesus called this the greatest of all the commandments, and note, the heart comes first. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. That's 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I think we've all heard that one before. And that's Luke chapter 12, verse 34. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And that's Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. Your word I have treasured in my heart, that I may not sin against you. And that's Psalms 119, verse 11. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. And that's Matthew chapter 15, verse 8. For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. And that's 2 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 9. All of man's way seems right to him, but the Lord's way is the heart. And that's Proverbs chapter 21, verse 2. And then I have one that applies to every day going to work. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as you're working for the Lord. And that's Colossians 3, chapter or verse 23. And then delight thyself in the Lord, and he shall give the desires of the heart. On this Sunday morning, and a beautiful day out, what are you here for? What do you really want? I know what I really want. And then my question is it the same thing you'll want tomorrow morning? The way of the heart, you might remember that it was the first Christians were called followers of the way. That's Acts 2, verses 43 and 47. They found the way of life, had given themselves over to it, and they lived together, ate, fought, celebrated together. They were intimate allies. It was a fellowship of the heart. How wonderful it would be if we could find time and to do that today in this country. Look at what we have. What do we do now with what we've got? How would we live differently if we believed our hearts were the treasure of the kingdom? But we are at war. The business of guarding the heart is a most serious business. It is precisely what we do not know what the next turn of the page will bring, that we nourish our hearts now, knowing at least that much. We will need our whole heart for whatever comes next. Above all else, we must take care of our hearts. We have to adjust at those around us. And if we don't, we can take a look at where our country is going. Is our country losing heart? Different religions do things differently now. Families used to come to church, the whole family, 8 or 9 people. Now, families don't have to come to church anymore. They can stay home and watch it in a communication system. My gut level feeling, I always want to say, is you can't hug the computer. And you come here for worship and you get hugged. I get hugged. I never used to be a hugger till I came here. Yeah, I kind of like that stuff. And then the thing that we need to watch out for the most is when you're guarding your heart and you're exhausted and you're tired and you've spent many hours doing whatever you do at work that you do, is when you're most vulnerable to the Satan, and he can plant ideas in your mind that normally would not happen. According to the scriptures, the heart can be troubled. It can be wounded. It can be pierced, even broken. It also can be cheerful, glad, merry, joyful, rejoicing. It can be whole, or it can be divided. Steadfast, true, upright, sour or valiant, or faint, or cowardly, and melt like wax. I don't like that last one because I'm a softy and people can get to me because it's easy. I have a friend sitting down here in the pew that says, learn to say no, Merv. Come on, say no. Well, I don't know. Maybe sometime before I die, I'll learn what that word is. But right now, I'm a soft touch. The door to my heart is open wide, and sometimes I have to pay the price for doing that. Much to our surprise, according to Jesus, a heart can be pure as blessed as pure as the heart will see God. And I misquoted that. It's Matthew 5, verse 8. Or in Luke, but the seed on good soil stands for those with a noble heart who hear the word, retain it, persevere, and produce a crop. The heart is a connecting point, the meeting place between any two persons, the kind of deep soul intimacy we crave with God and with others, and it can be experienced only from the heart. We don't want to be someone's project. We want to be the desire of their heart. Think about your life's work, or where you've worked or when you worked. So many people are bored and frustrated with what they're doing. Why do so many people dread Monday and are really giving God thanks when it's Friday? Their hearts are not in it. How many people really like the job they do? Now, I am going to go to the Bible. It's John chapter 5, and it's verses 2 through 5. And it's a story about a paraplegic man who goes to, well, let's put it this way. He goes to a pool at Bethesda. And one of the ways we look at this is for real proof of what you do. For the real proof, you must look in your own longings and aspirations. You must listen to the deep themes of your own life story. That was a quote by a man named Gerald May. Longing is the heart's treasury. That's by Augustine. What do you want? That's by Jesus of Nazareth. The shriveled figure lay in the sun like a pile of rags dumped there by accident. It hardly appeared to be human. But for those who used the gate to go in and out of Jerusalem recognized him. It was his spot and had been for as long as anyone could remember. He was disabled, dropped off every morning by someone in his family, and picked up again at the end of the day. Over the years, a sort of gallery of human brokenness gathered by the pool at Bethesda. The lame, the blind, the deaf, the lepers, you name it. It was a rumor was going around that sometimes, and no one really knew for sure, that an angel would stir the waters, and anybody who could get in first would be healed. Sort of a lottery, if you will. With every lottery, there are desperate people. There were those that would gather around hoping for the miracle, so that technically speaking, the man was never alone. But it had been so long since anyone had actually spoken to him, he thought the question was meant for someone else. Squinting upward into the sun, he didn't recognize the figure standing above him. The misshapen man asked the fellow to repeat himself. Perhaps he had misheard. Although the voice was kind, the question felt harsh and even cruel. What do you want to get well? He sat speechless, blinking in the sun. Slowly the words seeped into his consciousness, like a voice calling him out of a dream. Do I want to get well? Slowly, like a wheel long rusted, his mind began to turn over. What kind of question is that? Why else would I be lying here? Why else would I have spent every day for the past 38 seasons lying here? 38 years lying there. That amounts to 13,870 days. From dawn to dusk, or from dawn to dawn, that's 332,880,000 hours, or from morning to dark, 166,440 hours. Hours. 38 years. He thought, he's mocking me. The man was familiar with mockery, and he had endured this share of ridicule. But now his vision had adjusted to the glare, and he could see the inquisitor's face and his eyes. There was no hint of mockery. The face was as kind as the voice he heard. Apparently, the man meant what he said, and he was waiting for an answer. Do you want to get well? What is it that you want? Hey there, you without legs. What are you laying there for? Wouldn't you love to go up, stretch a bit, have a walk around? Who dared ask something so callous? But the question was asked, and are we missing something here? He is in love incarnate, and why did he ask the paraplegic such an embarrassing question? Of course, the fellow wanted to get well. You don't have to be God to see the obvious. Or was it, as with most of the questions Jesus posed, did the man know what he wanted? And that question that we get asked, do we know what we want? All these years he had been at the well. No one came by and helped him at all. No one had the heart to pick him up and carry him a few feet to the pool. Nobody, not a soul, no one. And all his days he wanted just one thing: forget riches, forget fame. Life was only one thing to him: to get up and walk. And Jesus told him, pick up your mat and walk. Then there's the story of the two blind men on the road to Jericho that repeats the same theme. Jesus was passing by the spot where the two men sat looking for a handout. And who knows how long. They learn that Jesus is going by and they cry out to him. So the crowd tries to shut them up. They succeed in only shouting over the ruckus and capturing the master's attention. The parade stopped. Jesus steps to the side of the road. Standing there before him are the two men. Nothing's clearer than what they are. They're blind. There's no doubt about that. What do you want for me to do for you? Again, the question. Again, the obvious that must not be obvious after all. They knew what they wanted. Jesus knew what they wanted. But he wanted to know if it came from their heart. My next illustration is there was a Samaritan woman who Jesus met at the well. Why did she show up at noon? Well, in the heat of the day. Back in those days, anyone having a partner other than who wasn't the one they were married to was highly frowned upon. It wasn't something that was done openly. And she was on her sixth lover. So she'd rather show up in the scorching heat and the rays of the sun than face the searing words of the immoral women who showed up in the evening or in the morning and collected water. Jesus knew what she wanted, and he knew why he was there. So he offered her living water. And he questioned her, and then he found from deep in her heart she wanted living water. I have a couple illustrations that I would like. I have one other. It's a blind beggar at the roadside. And he said, Jesus, son of David, have mercy upon thee. And Jesus asked him what he wanted. Let me see again. And Jesus told him, go, your faith has made you well. The Bible sees the heart as a source of creativity, courage, and conviction. It is the source of our faith, hope and cause of our love. It is the wellspring of life within us. That's Proverbs 4, verse 23. The very essence of our existence and the center of our being, the font of our life. I have an illustration of of the heart. About 10, 15 years ago, in a little town just on the Alabama-Louisiana border, there was a little white church. The congregation maybe amounted to 200 to 300 people when everybody was there. The pastors were a man and woman. Both were pastors of the church. On this particular Sunday morning, it was an overcast day, and the male pastor was on a mission to Oklahoma or Arizona to give, presents and stuff to Indian kids. So the church service was the ladies this Sunday morning. So she gets her family together, a daughter of about 6 years old and another one about 2, and they go to church. She parks the young one in the nursery, and the oldest one is sitting on a pew right in front of her, nice yellow dress and just kicking her legs and waiting for Mama to preach. The wind starts blowing, and the clouds get mean looking, and the wind blows, and it blows, and it blows. Now the building starts to shake, and everybody's getting worried. Pretty soon the windows pop out, and in about 30 seconds the whole building comes falling down. The whole congregation is buried under whatever is left of the church. So when the lady wakes up, people are taking debris off of her, and she's trying to find out if everything she has intact. No broken bones, anything. Pretty beat up, scratched and bruised and bleeding a little bit, but okay. She starts thinking about the family. The church is literally demolished. In the northwest corner is, the section of the corner, and sitting on a stool there is a lady with her head cracked open and bleeding, holding the pastor's young daughter. Fine, she knows that one's safe. Where's the other one? And as friends and neighbors from the town start pouring in, and they start moving all this debris, someone spots some yellow, and so they work their way through it, and they finally lift a rafter, and there's the 6-year-old. She didn't make it. She went to be with the Lord. Her mother is devastated. This is my church. These are my people. I don't have it anymore. It's gone. What do I do? She was stunned. One of her neighbors took the daughter home, and she went home. And about 8 or 9 o'clock that evening, her husband showed up. And they decide, what are we going to do? They start making preparations to have a funeral, and the whole town is doing that. Everybody's bustling around. She's still dazed. She just, doesn't know what to do. About Wednesday afternoon, the phone starts to ring. People are calling, are we going to have a service on Sunday? What are you talking about? We don't have a church. It's gone. It's a wreck. You want a service? What do you want from me? But it kept ringing. And on the rest of the day, Thursday and Friday, Saturday, the phone kept ringing, and people wanted a service. So Sunday, her and her husband decided, we will go down to the church. And that's what they do. They get down there, and someone has cleared all the debris to the side. The only thing left is the foundation, and in that one little corner that was left, someone has put some folding chairs out in front of the steps that would go up into the church, and there was a kind of a podium thing like this one that she could preach from, or he could preach from. And they look at this, and then in the center of where, right in the middle of the church, was a cross, probably about like that one, with a shroud draped over it. And she's looking at that, and she's looking at all these people. They're sitting down in there, and she said, it was the darndest thing you ever seen. She said people were sitting there. They had crutches, they had slings on, their heads were bandaged. She said there wasn't a person there that didn't have some kind of bandage on them. She said you had to see it to believe it. It was just that weird. And about that time, the clouds cleared, and a sun ray came through the trees. And it landed, and she said, swear to God, it landed right on that cross. And that was the only sunlight you could see was shining on that cross. She looked at the people in front of her, and she thought about them. She says, you are my church. I don't know of any place else that I would rather be than right here. And she preached. And they rebuilt the church. Took them about a year. The corner of the church that was left, they made a monument there, and they put a plaque there of all the people that died. And then for the daughter, they made kind of a U-shaped flower garden with yellow pansies and stuff in them. And it tells me that wherever you go, what you do with your life, if it's God-centered, it don't matter where you are. If you have God, you'll make it. Somehow you'll make it. My next story is one that I was fortunate a few years ago to teach a vacation Bible school class in this church. Susan was nice enough to trust me one year. So I had a bunch of kids in front of me, and I wanted the kids to understand about the heart and what your heart does and why you have a heart and why you need one. And these innocent eyes are looking at me, and I'm trying to think, what kind of story am I going to read to them? And I couldn't find one. So I made one up. And I call it The Motorcycle Rider, the Little Girl, and a Squirrel. And what I told the kids was this. There was this lady and her daughter in this little park where they would walk each morning. There was a few people who would be sitting on benches watching them. And there was this roar coming down the street, and this motorcycle guy comes whipping around the corner. Thump, thump. He hits something. So, he stops, and he gets off the cycle, and there's a squirrel laying there. He hit a squirrel. And he thinks, oh, boy. But this motorcycle guy is the leader of the gang. I mean, this guy is about 450 pounds. He fills up this hog that's got a long railing on it, makes more noise than 5, Mack trucks. And he's wearing a German World War II helmet with a spike on it. He has tattoos up and down his arms. He's got a leather jacket on that says Hell's Angels in front, and on the back it says Texas Mudders, whatever that's supposed to mean. And he looks down at that squirrel, and he picks the squirrel up and throws it over to the side of the street. The little girl is standing there, and she's looking at the squirrel, and she says, he's hurt. Mister, he's hurt. We have to help him. The motorcycle guy says, he's dead. Picks him up and moves him a little further. No, mister, he's hurt. We have to help him. Oh, boy, kid, you know what you want? Yeah. No, mister, please, he's hurt. We have to help him. So she walks over to a garbage can, and it's full of these little cardboard boxes, that you get at the fast food place. And she pulls one out, and she pulls a bunch of grass out of it and puts it in there and takes it out and hands it to the motorcycle guy. And he's supposed to pick the squirrel up and put it in the box. So he does that. Then he carries it over and puts it on the curb. They're standing there looking at it, and this big old motorcycle guy and this little teeny girl, and she reaches up and grabs a hold of his hand. And she says, we helped him. We helped him. And about that time, the squirrel twitches a little bit more and a little bit more, raises his head, the tail comes up, and across the street he goes, up a tree, and then he's up there chattering like mad at him for giving him a bad time. The motorcycle guy is standing there holding the little girl's hand, and he kind of shakes it and turns around and mumbles something and walks off. And gets on his motorcycle and drives away. And the girl's mother is, kind of looking at this. The people that were there were really wondering, great big old guy, little bitty girl, we better watch out for him. But she goes over and she says, what did he say? What did he say? And somebody says, I don't know. I said, no, he said something. What did he say? And so the response was, somebody phoned over and said, you want to know what he said? Yes. What did he say? He said, what a big heart for such a little girl. The kids loved it. I wanted to speak to you guys today for this reason. A friend of mine who I know real well tells me I'm a softie, that my heart's an open door. And anybody that wants in comes in. And if anybody needs help, I help, whether they need it or not. And that I'm a sucker for a sob story. I guess that's probably true. Along with that territory comes a little bit of bruising. And of course, my background is tough old Marine, don't bend for nobody. But this last year, someone got to me and I melted a little bit. And for the first time in 70 years, I cried. Right down here, I cried. And another time, I cried. And I cried 2 more times when my best friend, or one of my best friends, Willie Weddle, who used to, made the coffee and stuff at the church, and Fred Gunther. Both were I was close to both of them. Willie and I just went through a lot of stuff together, and we just kind of, bounced off each other, if that's what you want to say. I'd sit down there in that third pew, and Fred would sing, and I would quit. Because my voice goes up and around and down, I carry a tune like a frog. But Fred had a voice that would just, he'd start singing, so I'd quit. And he'd elbow me. You sing. I said, I can't. I'm too busy to listen to you. And I did. I have found that my background is such that you don't cry, you don't shed tears. I don't cry. I'm not supposed to cry. My makeup is don't cry. Hang tough, show your mettle and don't cry. I think this last year has changed that. I think that you people, some other people, have come so close to me that I realize how much you mean to me. And I thought, how else can I express it to you unless I get up here and tell you that that's what it is. Myself, in my life, I came to this church a few years ago, and I was not feeling too good. I felt that maybe the rope I was hanging on to, that the knot was about to slip away. And I went into the front office, and I told Destiny, when's Steve going to be here? And she said, he won't be here till noon. And I actually told her that, well, when he shows up, you tell him to come downstairs. I'm going to be hanging from a rafter. Well, a friend of mine showed up there. I'm not going to say who it was, but we went into the fireside room, and we talked for a long time. And when I left, my attitude was different. A couple days after that, I was down here in the pew. And I got down on my hands and knees, and what I did, I said, God, I'm just tired of what I do and what is causing me so much trouble in my life. If you will make it stop, I will become the best Christian person you can think of. I will come to church on Sunday. I will do all the things that you can look down on me and say, good job, my son. That's what I wanted. Along with that came the open heart and what comes with it. But I can honestly sit here and say, the heart does not know what it sees. It only knows what it feels. And the second thing, treasure is God's gift to the heart of man. And now, after a few days and some time of my own, I now make fun of what has happened in the past. And I can say right here, I've had major heartbreaks 4.5 times. Why half? I'm still working on that one. So, but the Bible message that came to me this week simply was this: He healeth the broken heart and bindeth up their wounds. That's Psalm 143. And then I would like to finish this morning with this. External life, we tend to think of it in terms of an existence that never comes to an end. The existence seems to imply a sort of religious experience in the sky, leaving us wondering if we would want to go on forever. But Jesus is quite clear that when he speaks of eternal life, what he means is a life that is absolutely wonderful and can never be diminished or stolen from you. He says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. That's John chapter 10, verse 10. Not have I come to threaten you into line, nor have I come to exhaust you with a long list of demands. Not even. I have come primarily to forgive you. But simply my purpose is to bring life to all into fullness. Jesus himself as God's doorway into the life that is only life. Confidence in him leads us today as in no other times. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. We think what we've learned about God is the best news in the world. That God's love is real, God's love is for you, and God's love is worth it. Our doors stay open because of the generous giving of people like you. If you would like to financially support the ministry of First Christian Church, you can give in person on our website at nampafirstchristian.org or via text by typing in the amount you would like to give and sending that to 208-314-3322. May God's love be real to you today. We'll catch you next time.